let's talk about covert contract. I learned about this concept in the book No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert Glover. I think it's a very interesting concept, and a lot of us are doing this without realizing that we're doing it. So let's talk about it. Like the name suggests, a covert contract has two parts to it: a contract and the fact that it's covert. Essentially, it is a set of rules and expectations that is kept hidden from the other person. It's what you expect them to do in terms of behavior without actually telling them directly. You just hope that they know. And when they don't do it, you feel betrayed and hurt. Obviously, this sounds ridiculous, right? If you don't tell people what you want, how can you expect people to do what you want? But I bet you it happens a lot more often than you think. For example, a very common professional covert contract is that if I consistently go above and beyond my obligations, my effort will be recognized, appreciated, and rewarded. This is not necessarily true, if at all. In fact, this behavior might have the opposite effect. From management's perspective, they're seeing that if they don't reward your effort, you're going to work harder to earn that reward. So if they want you to continue to go above and beyond your obligations, they're going to withhold that reward from you. This is a covert contract that you don't want to be in. Yet, a lot of people continue to burn themselves out at work with the hope that at the end of the day, they will be rewarded. And when they don't get rewarded, they feel resentful and exploited. There are so many covert contracts when it comes to dating. A very common example that is associated with the nice guy syndrome is that if I buy her dinner, if I help her move, if I listen to all of her problems and be the shoulder for her to cry on, eventually she'll recognize my effort and reward me with sex and companionship. Now, I'm not saying that any of these behaviors are bad or wrong. They're just ineffective when trying to get sex and companionship. On top of that, you are assuming this whole scenario. You're doing all of these nice things, expecting her to sleep with you in return. But this was never communicated directly. So when things don't go your way, you feel resentful and exploited. Covert contracts are usually based on the premise that everybody thinks the same way you do. So you shouldn't have to tell them what you want, your expectations, your boundaries, your needs. They should just know because everybody thinks the same way. Now, this could be a justification for the fact that you are afraid of confrontation, rejection, or abandonment. You think that if you bring these things up directly, it might lead to some sort of confrontation or the end of a relationship. Another element of this could be the shame from asking for what you want. So you just keep it to yourself and hope that the other person gets it. The problem with this line of thinking is that anything that is unspoken is also unreasonable to expect. People don't think like you. They don't know what you want. They cannot read your mind. So if you're holding them to a certain expectations without actually telling them, they're going to disappoint you, and it's not their fault. It's your fault. Covert contracts usually lead to resentment over time. You're thinking that they should know this, which means that if they're not doing what you want, they're doing so intentionally. And this narrative starts to form in your mind, and every time they disappoint you, you start to resent them a little bit more. Or you might start to take it personally. You're thinking that they might be rejecting you. They know what you want, but they're not giving you what you want because you're not worth that kind of attention and affection. So instead of resenting them or hating them, you become depressed and self-loathing. Either way, that's not good. You know that you're in a covert contract if people constantly disappoint you, even though you didn't ask for what you want in the first place. You never told them what you want, your desires, your boundaries, your expectations. And this applies to all types of relationship: friendship, professional relationship, romantic relationship, relationships with your family members. So when you find yourself in this situation, what can you do? The key to ending a covert contract is the same thing to preventing it. You need to be very direct about what you want and expect from that relationship. Clearly communicate your standards, expectations, boundaries, desires. Put everything out on the table. And if you don't do this, you don't communicate what you want, you need to assume that people are not going to do it. This has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with you. So you can choose to withhold information, but when you don't get what you want, you have to take responsibility because it is on you. Now, keep in mind that sometimes setting these boundaries and standards might end the relationship, and that's okay. If by being open about what you want pushes them away, that means they're not a good fit for you, and it's better to find that out early on. This is also the reason why your standards and expectations must be based on reality. If your standards are unrealistic and your expectations are unreasonable, then you're just asking to be disappointed because nobody can live up to your standards. At that point, you're just delusional. However, if your standards and expectations are based on reality, you clearly communicate what you want, so they know what your boundaries are, your standards and expectations, but they choose not to provide it. Now you know that you're actually being disrespected, and it's time to move on. What do you think? Have you ever been in a covert contract before? Let me know your experience in the comment section. If you like this video, I got another one I want you to watch. It's about one of the most delusional beliefs that destroys relationships. It's very simple. In fact, it's so simple that you might not believe me when I tell you. To learn more about that, check out this video here. Until next time, stay curious.